Welcome to Running Stronger. My name is Will Frantz, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about running form and 3 aspects of running form that will get most people most of the way there. Now, if it would be helpful for you to see a video format of this, that is going to be up on YouTube, and you can definitely go watch it. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Now, if you don't care, if you have a pretty good understanding of like some of the anatomical terms I'm going to use, or you just have a good visual space where you can see these things in your head, then probably not all that necessary. But if you would like to watch it, if it would be helpful, that is an option, and it will be in the show notes. And now let's go talk about running form.
When it comes to running form, if most people focused on 3 things, they'd probably do a lot better. There are, I don't know, a million things that are relevant to good running form. A lot of them are really individual to the person, but for most of us, if we focused on 3 things, we'd probably be like 90 to 95+% of the way there. So those 3 things are going to be your rib cage position in relation to your pelvis, your foot strike positioning, and its relation to your body, and your cadence. So if we look at rib cage positioning in relation to pelvis, our ribs can be in a bunch of different orientations, right? Like we can be here, we're going to call this neutral. Neutral is not a well-defined term. It's going to be fairly relevant to the person. What it actually is going to be where your like thoracic or rib cage diaphragm, the one that pulls your lungs down, is stacked well over your pelvic diaphragm, the thing that keeps your pelvis from blowing out the bottom, or your organs from blowing out the bottom of your pelvis. So if we look at your ribs, and if we're going to call this neutral, we can also have it tilted up, where we have rib flare, or tilted down, which happens a lot when we get tired. You want that to be in a neutral position. Now we also want the pelvis to be in a neutral position and not either posteriorly tilted or anteriorly tilted. If we have what a lot of people have is rib flare and an anteriorly tilted pelvis, we have no real engagement in the abdomen. We're going to be using a lot of the muscles of our low back to create force, and we're usually going to end up in a decent amount of pain. Now, we also don't want to like overcorrect though and end up here. We don't want to look like this like scared dog or turtle position. We don't want to be tilted forward and tilted up. We just want to find a nice, stable position. When they talk about it in martial arts, they'll say things like, imagine your body being like held from a string. And we're just trying to find that position where your rib cage and your pelvis are stacked over one another. If we find that position, then we will be able to do better with creating force with the glutes. We are going to be able to do better with like return from the hamstring. The quads will be able to do more. Your feet are not going to have as much likelihood of turning out. We're not going to be pulling through the low back. We're just going to be able to create more force, be more stable, and do better work. It's just going to put us in a position to run better. We also have our foot strike positioning. So there's a few different ways, right? And it doesn't necessarily matter where your foot lands on the ground. It is going to matter more if we're talking about something like sprinting. But for most of us, if we're doing endurance running, it doesn't matter. You will look at marathoners and they will both heel strike and midfoot strike throughout the pace of a marathon. It just kind of depends on what your primary strategy is. For most people, if we look at a foot, and this is the ball of my foot, like where my foot bones come to a head and my toes bend up, I want to land just behind that. Now, you can land in a heel strike position. What we really need to do, though, is load this foot with my body weight over the middle of that foot. So when I'm loading this foot, I want my body weight to be in that position that's behind this ball of my foot, behind these foot bones. If we can find that, then we're much less likely to have shin splints. We're much less likely to have like hamstring pulls because we're just able to use more elastic force. We will be springier. So It doesn't matter if you heel strike, it matters if you load your body weight over the center of your foot. And we are going to try to find, and one way to try to find that, or one way to get used to that is plyos. So we can do plyometrics because they're a very like smacky thing on the ground where we're trying to hit this position behind the ball of the foot. It can give you that feeling of where your foot needs to land and where it needs to load. Because if you're doing something like a plyometric like leap or pogo, you can't be out here. You will fall over. So getting used to that positioning can be really helpful. But no matter what, we are trying to find that loading position of my torso, of my body weight, of my center of mass over the center of my foot when that really comes to be. And we want that on both sides, and you want that with every step. And this is why you're probably not going to fix a lot of these problems in the moment. You're going to have to fix them outside and get used to this movement pattern in the gym. But this is also why we probably don't want to do a ton of junk miles if you haven't run a lot, because we don't have the practice, right? Like running is a skill and it is a difficult skill. Number three, and this can solve a lot of problems, is your cadence, right? Like I'm short and I have short legs even for a short person. Therefore, I have to move my legs a lot. They have to hit the ground a lot in order to get any real source of speed, all right? Like a mouse has to have his legs hit the ground more than a giraffe to hit the same pace, right? Not that hard. So for me, my cadence needs to be pretty high, even at lower paces. If it's not, I have a much higher likelihood of like overstriding. We're going to miss that loading point that we were just talking about. I'm much more likely to lean back and end up with problems. So when we're looking at something like cadence or whatever, we are looking for a cadence usually above probably 165, 170. If your cadence is currently at like 150, then we don't want to just jump to 180, right? We want to bring it up by like 5 beat increments, and you can do this by using a metronome. You can do this by like picking a playlist that has a particular BPM on it. There's a bunch of ways to like work on this cadence, but we want to increase the cadence until you find one that works for you. And it might change over time. It will change with what speed you're going. Faster speeds are going to create a slightly higher cadence. We want to be kind of in the pocket of probably 175 to 185 for most people. There will be outliers. You will see people with a cadence of 200. You will see people with a cadence of 155, but the vast majority of people should probably be in this like 175 to 185 or like 170 to 185 pocket if we're going to be running, and that is going to help a lot. So if we look at your cadence either dictated by your watch, or you can even just turn a metronome on as you're running and like pair it with your normal footstep, and we see something like your cadence is 155, then we can just start to pick that up slowly and progressively until it feels more comfortable, and that is going to get rid of a lot of problems. So again, 3 things that we're looking for when it comes to running form is going to be stacking your rib cage over your pelvis, foot strike positioning, where we're loading the foot underneath, we're loading our center of mass over the center of our foot, and cadence, where we're looking probably over 170, maybe 175, 180. And if we do those things, you're probably going to be having pretty good running form, and the rest of it's just going to be little nitpicky details.